The Danq is a straight up mixture of the Tranq and the Wraith. When I produced the Danq, I was basically just overlaying the Tranq and overlaying the Wraith and mixing those proportions and outlines together until I found something that I thought looked cool for one, but also I thought had the dimensions that would work on the water. And the main consideration point for me was being able to keep a square tip and tail, nose and tail, but having the width right that it wasn't too wide and too cumbersome to ride. So that's kind of hard because with the parabolic rail, with the side cut, it's really difficult to keep some curve here in this section of the board, yet still maintain side cut and maintain enough width in the center that it doesn't feel like you're riding on nothing. So I felt like the width that I have here was about as narrow as I could go before it started feeling odd. And the width I left just in front of the foot is actually the same width that you see on the Tranq in a 155. That's the same width just in front of your foot as you see on the Danq 157. Obviously the Danq stays a bit straighter for longer, so the tips do feel a little bit wider up the front than you would feel on the Tranq. It feels like it has more surface area overall because you have more surface area out in front of your feet, but it still maintains that lively feel because it has the curve into these square tips, and the square tips actually aren't that wide. For the construction, we've got the same layup as all the other boards. We've got a full wood CNC'd core, 600 gram glass top and bottom, and a full sintered PTEX base for durability on rails or on the beach. Now the cores are CNC'd specific to all the sizes, so that means that the 147, the 152 and the 157 all have their own file and all have a different core CNC'd for their size. So it's not just scaled up or scaled down, and it's not just a board that is made the same and then cut to size. It's made specifically for the size that it is supposed to be. So you will notice that on, for example, the 147 or the 152 or the 157, you have a certain amount of taper, and that tapers out and gets thin, and you have that changing on all of the boards to give you the correct stiffness and to give you that same feeling of flex across the different sizes. Typically, a lot of boards in the industry will just use the same mold and then cut the different sizes out of the same mold. And what that will do is it will give you only a thickness the same across all the sizes. So this board here is tapering out around here, and then you've got, 10 or 15 centimeters of thin tip, whereas if you were making a board that was another 10 centimeters shorter, you wouldn't have that taper out at all. The taper would go all the way to the end of the tip, and you would have a board that rides and feels super stiff compared to how this 157 would feel for a bigger rider. So the Danq, basically to sum it up, is made per size along with all the other boards in the lineup, and I feel like that's a really big selling point for OASI boards and just these designs in general. You get the same insert layout as all the other boards. It's the same stance options on every single board, on every single size. So whatever you're running on the other boards, you can run on the Danq as well. Don't be scared about that. One of the aspects that the Danq has that the other boards in the lineup don't have is it has this step down rail. It has like a 45-degree, and then it goes into a flat before it gets to the rail. And this little kink is adding some stiffness. So overall, the Danq is actually the stiffest board in the entire lineup. It might not feel too much stiffer for a lot of people than the quill or the tranq, but this little kink in the rail is adding stiffness. And to me, it is noticeable that it's just, yeah, a little bit stiffer underfoot. And I do feel that's needed because if you're using this board for freestyle or you're using this board for park, this board actually isn't as wide in the middle as, say, the tranq or the quill. It's like 2 to 3 centimeters narrower, so it really does need a bit of extra stiffness there in the middle to keep it in control, basically. The side cut to me is one of the biggest benefits of the Danq. Not only do I think it just looks kind of cool, but when you're riding, it really does make a difference. It gives you those 2 contact points on the water, and just like a snowboard on the snow, it makes it more stable and predictable and gives you a whole lot more bite when you're on a rail. To me, it's super, super noticeable, and other people that have got on the Danq have also really noticed just how much it bites the water when you're on an edge. At first, it bites a lot, and if you're edging as hard as you normally would on a normal style board like the tranq or the quill, you might be over edging and kind of burying your rail too much and kind of grabbing the water. And after you learn that you don't need to edge in exactly the same way as you do on these style of boards, you can really get a lot of height and a lot of grab out of the rail without too much effort. The Danq's a board that does come, this board here doesn't have fin holes drilled, but it does come with fin holes drilled. You can put fins on it, but it's a board that really rides super aggressively and has a lot of grip on a rail even without fins. So the Danq for me is basically just an all-round shredder. I really enjoy doing freestyle on the Danq. I really enjoy riding in the park on the Danq. And if you're free riding, just jumping, doing butter slides and cruising around, maybe riding some waves, the Danq also does all those things super well. It also comes in sizes 147 and 152. This is the 157. And that 147 size has really been tailored to freestyle riders. So people who would typically be on something like a 144 to 145, 46, they're going to really like the 147 Danq. And I think they will be surprised like just how much it grabs on a rail when you're doing unhook tricks, and also how that size of board just isn't as big as what you think it would be because you're missing that center part of the board on the Danq. Really does make a difference because you're just lessening the surface area in the middle there. So getting the board onto a rail and burying these 2 contact points into the water just becomes way easier. The Danq, in my opinion, is the best all-round choice for someone who wants an alternative performance board. There's really not another option here that matches the Danq, and I don't think there's another option on the market that comes close to the Danq. So, my opinion, if you don't know what to get and you want something different, get the Danq. If you've got any questions about it, hey, if you want to try one and I'm nearby, just hit me up. I think the Danq is the best all-round option. Cheers.